are back with another episode of Unscripted with Antara and Garima.
Where she's Antara. And hi, I'm Garima, and today on the show we have Shatha. And no intro for Shatha this time?
Because everybody knows already. I know she said no introduction, but we technically don't need to because anyone who's worked with her, seen her, interacted with her, they know who she is and they know exactly how amazing she is.
Even if you've not done that and just follow her on her social media platforms, you have enough and more and so much of content there that gives you all that adrenaline just to read all that stuff on Twitter and her LinkedIn profile, what she writes, how opinionated she is. And just to read that, you were like, this woman needs to come and join us on Unscripted.
Definitely.
Right?
So now we are going to put you in the spotlight and you're going to tell us exactly how everything started, the career journey. Take us through it all.
Okay? Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I mean, I've been working for 25 years. I started with Arthur Andersen, spent 3.5 good years there until they had with the Enron scandal in the US, the entire firm collapsed worldwide. Then I joined PwC, spent a little bit of time there, and there was a demand because of the scandal that happened with Enron. Something called SOX compliance came up, and PwC in Oman asked me, are you okay to travel to the US? I said, yes, sure, if you guys train me, I'm happy to do that. So I spent a couple of years in the US and in Manchester. Then I came back and got a good opportunity with Shell Oman Marketing. So I was heading treasury and MIS and shareholders relations and all. And then I decided that, okay, I love the industry experience because you own the risk as opposed to advising clients. But I decided consulting is where my heart is. So then I applied to the US in California and joined the technology team, system and process assurance. Spent a couple of years there, but then unfortunately my younger brother passed away, so I decided to come back home. Oh, it's good. I mean, everything happens for a reason. God bless his soul. And so I returned home, and I got poached by Mubarak al-Namani, who just set up Protiviti, and told me, hey, I want you to come in and be my right hand.
Your right hand?
My right hand, yeah. Which was quite an honorable thing to hear, especially after spending some time overseas. And so I accepted the job offer. And I've been there now for 15 years, of which most of it as a country MD. Thanks to him, too.
Wow. Very nicely. How nicely she's just kind of taken us through with the fact that she was here in Oman, then she went to the US, she came back to Oman, then she went to China, then she came back to Oman, then she went to Yemen, then she came back to Oman. Then there was quite a travel, and those 25 years have really seen a lot, right?
Yes.
So if you had to just compare yourself, what Shatha was like 25 years back and what Shatha is like now, what is the difference that you see in her?
Actually, when I reflect back what I was then, I was quite courageous considering how young I was and the circumstances that I was in. I wasn't aware of it until like maybe 10 years ago when you hear about different, struggles and conflicts at the workplace. And I was like, oh, I never went through that. Then when I hear stories, I'm like, oh my goodness, I've actually been through a lot over the last, 15 years. At least the first 15 years of my career it was not smooth sailing, but I had a lot of fun. And I realized actually I was thick-skinned. And a big thanks goes to actually my parents and my brothers, because I was raised in a home where, we were equals. And actually, I got a lot of attention from my parents. I think from my mom on the education level, and even career, she was my mentor. And my dad just spoiled me as, treating me like a princess. Not spoiled me any other way, but just made sure that I'm treated as a woman and respected as a woman. Right. And same thing with the boys. Right. So I was blessed in that environment. So I think I was ready to go out in the real world and not be like devastated by anything. And I knew my boundaries, and I knew how to, I wouldn't say demand respect, but earn respect, regardless of the circumstances.
Right. Shatha, you mentioned in the conversation that both your parents were working, which is not very common, especially here in a market like Oman, right? Was there anything, or did you ever feel that you were treated differently back then when you were in school, when you had both your parents working, or was it just the same? Was there any difference? Did you ever feel that?
I did, for sure. I mean, I went to a private school, and of course my mom just tried to push us to the best schooling that we could get. Being a working woman, she had that leverage and that discussion with my dad saying, look, this is where the kids are going to go. It's not about what our budget is, but she's happy to allocate an additional budget to make sure that we get the best education. And back then, the school that I went to, I would say that, most of the mothers weren't working mothers. So we used to get sometimes bullied in school. Me and my younger brothers, like, hey, your mother doesn't have time for you because our mother's always at home cooking for us, doing this and that. But I was like, wait a minute, like my mom had a government job. She had a business.
Right.
But by the time we get back from school, she's waiting. She's eyeing us. She's making sure we have our lunch, get back on the table, tutor us, and make sure we go to bed on time. So, I mean, I was like, I even tease her until today and tell her that, did you ever not have time for yourself? Didn't you have your own activities? Because I didn't feel like she was a working mother.
Right.
I didn't feel like she's a businesswoman.
She balanced it.
She was just
Perfect.
amazing. Like, she was just, she had her eyes all on us. So
I'm
for
going
me,
to ask you another question,
Yeah.
right? And you've got to be very honest.
sure.
Were you always grateful and, in awe of your mom and dad right from the beginning, or it came as you grew up? Like, you never complained with the fact that, mom, you're not spending enough time with me while the other mothers are spending enough time with their kids. Were you always like that grateful to your parents, or it came with time?
Because I think with kids, they also get influenced when a couple of them come and ask you that, hey, what's your mother doing? Or
Yeah.
does she have time for you or not? You start thinking that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And
did it
even if
affect
that
you?
thought is not there, it's somewhere, it just
Yeah.
suddenly comes.
They
That even
just
if you're not thinking
plant
about
it in your head.
it somewhere affects
Yeah.
you. Did
I
it?
mean, I think the problem with my mom, she was always around us. That was the problem. I was like, when does she take a break, right? Because she just did not leave us alone from the time we come back from school until we go to bed. She's just fully alert and her eyes are on us, with our education and discipline. That's it. But I'm very grateful. I'm extremely grateful. Obviously, you exchange notes also with your classmates and you hear the stories and you're like, I don't have those problems.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah. So, it
So
was
I think
always
I got
there.
an abundance of attention, abundance of love,
Yeah.
abundance of support, and abundance of discipline.
Oh.
The discipline was there.
Yeah.
My
Just
mom
strike
was
that
the
balance.
cop.
Yeah.
My mom was the cop, although my dad is a cop. He
Yeah.
worked for Royal Oman Police for 40 plus years, but my mom was the cop.
Ooh.
At home. Yeah.
Wow.
She was the boss at home.
Wow.
Well, the boss
Wow.
of her kids. Yeah.
Yeah. You've traveled so much,
Yeah.
right? And you were traveling from Oman. And you've traveled to really a lot of countries, yeah? Did you see any, were you ever intimidated, or did you see that major cultural difference while you traveled and stayed there and worked in the other countries that you did?
Definitely, a lot of cultural differences. For me, working in the US was actually inspiring.
Okay.
Working for PwC, the big four global consulting firm, it was amazing. Despite being the only Arab, being one of the only women in my section or division at a senior level, there was kind of a strange pressure, especially during the time when I was there. The country was going through an economic turmoil. There were 2 rounds of layoffs that happened. I missed the bullet twice. I said either I'm really hardworking or underpaid. That's why I still have my job.
Yeah.
But actually, it was an extremely inspiring workplace. I remember one time I was asked, is there a cultural issue because you're very quiet?
Yeah.
And actually, I was really just observing, trying to understand the environment and how to operate and how to get things right. And then they actually started allocating time for me, specifically, in the leadership meetings to have a conversation. They said, we don't care what topic you cover, but at least the first 10 minutes, you're going to talk about something. Because they saw that there was value coming from me, considering I was working in Oman. In Oman, the benefit is you get to do a little bit of everything. In the US, you get to do one thing in depth. Yeah, so in Oman, the breadth of my experience was actually something that they were fascinated by. And I
Right.
was fascinated by the depth of the expertise.
Right.
So I had, I was winning on
Right.
both sides. And I was fortunate at that time because both females,
Yeah.
partners,
Yeah.
were very supportive of women. So both partners were females. So
Wow.
that was just extremely
Wow.
another level. So we have like
Wow.
10 guys at my level,
Yeah.
and then I have 2 women at the top.
Yeah.
So obviously I could see that when there's a woman at the top or woman at the top,
Yeah.
just changes the dynamics.
How? I really want to know.
Well, I mean, I think they're very aware of the subtle microaggressions that women can face at the workplace. So, for example, I was interrupted in a meeting by another man, and she actually just like tapped the table quite loudly and just said, excuse my language, but like, shut up and let her finish what she was saying.
Wow.
So I was quite
That's
intimidated.
bold.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
bold.
I was
Yeah.
quite intimidated by her when she said that. I was like, oh my God, I hope nobody talks to me like that. But then she just looked over and smiled at me and said, can you complete what you were saying? Very softly. And then she took me to her office and she said, you need to talk more. We need to hear you. She's like, why don't you talk as much as you should? Is it a cultural issue? Is it from where from the country you come from? I mean, they were quite considerate. They even asked me if working on Friday is okay. Like, look at the level of consideration.
Nice.
And, they said, we know that it's a holy day for you. Is it an issue for you to work on Fridays? I was like, oh my God, I feel like a queen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I didn't, for me, it was a beautiful cultural, I wouldn't say shock, but I was integrated very well into
And
the system.
did this particular experience push you to do the same for others in your field?
100%.
And how did you do that?
I mean, I do that in my office at the
Right.
moment. I think, so I've had like 5 women. The woman that I was reporting to, I actually hired her. I got her to be hired at Protiviti. She ended up becoming a partner at Protiviti. She was heading the country in Bahrain. I had another woman hired. Today she's a partner at KPMG in Paris. And as we speak, I have 3 female directors.
Doesn't that make you
my
feel
office.
proud?
Of
And
course.
don't you feel like, oh my
Yes.
God,
Yes.
I've
True
worked with them,
leader.
and you just get another level of happiness when people whom you worked with or
You've
probably
coached,
yeah you've coached, you mentored, and when you see them excel in their field, it just
It's like
gives
an
you like a
achievement for yourself.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's
true
just supporting a decision, right?
Yeah.
So,
Correct.
like the Italian woman who worked with us, I just supported the decision for hiring. I'm like,
Yeah.
she's great. Just let's
Yeah.
hire her.
Yeah.
She earned it. But she always says, thanks for having my back.
Yeah.
Because today I'm in Paris and I
Yeah.
made it to partnership.
Yeah. So actually, if we look at it, there were a lot of women who actually supported you. Women supporting women.
Yeah.
Do you see that enough happening in today's time?
Not enough. Not enough, unfortunately.
And why do you say that?
I mean, just from experience. I mean, I think there's multiple reasons for that too. There are not enough women in leadership positions for us to actually witness that. And I think there is definitely a shift happening.
Right.
Could we do more? 100%.
Right.
I mean, there's a book that was written by a man and a woman. I think it's called Women Rise at Work or something like that by Marshall Goldsmith and another person. They said 12 habits that hold back women. And one of them is we don't leverage our relationships, right? So like I met you now and I met you, I could easily just give you a call tomorrow and say, hey, can you take this woman in? But I would be like, no, that's really inauthentic. I don't know Garima. And Garima would be like, she's just using me. Like that's usually the mindset that women have because we want to be authentic. But that actually holds us back. Whereas a man is like, oh, don't worry about it. I just met him yesterday and I'll sort you out.
That's
Yeah,
actually
so-
very true. Now that you say out loud, I'm thinking of a couple of instances, and yes,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
100% correct.
Yeah. Does that mean that we actually overthink
We do, of course.
and overthink more than
We
men?
overanalyze and we self-sabotage. Yeah, because
we don't give
overanalyze
ourselves enough
everything.
credit.
No, we never do. We
Yeah.
never do.
Ah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk more about that book. You've just completed one. You've just taken us through that one bad
Yeah.
habit. Tell me more.
See, I think there is one of the habits that it's actually called the perfection trap. So, if it's not perfect, and so we always have this, it has to be flawless. Whatever it is that we do, it has to be flawless. I do understand historically and culturally and everything, there is more spotlight on our mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So if a woman something goes wrong with her, it's like, oh, look, it's because she's a woman. But
Yeah.
if a guy, it's like, okay, mistakes happen, right? So
Yeah.
we have those situations. And I think
Yeah.
also women, we ruminate a lot, right? Like you said, we overanalyze the situation.
Yeah.
It's like, just let it go. I mean, things happen. I was actually guilty of many of these habits that hold us back. And one of them is the perfection trap,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
I was so obsessed with perfectionism to the point that I got burnt out, to the point I was even misdiagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And I know my whole body was lit up because I was just exhausted. Yeah, so I did, a PET scan and they said, oh, you've got lymphoma. And it wasn't. My body was just reacting and then I realized I had like a revelation during the procedure that I just overdo it. I have to prove, I have to wait for someone to pay credit, I have to wait for someone to reward me, someone to recognize
Validation.
me.
You need validation.
Why? Definitely. External validation is another whole. I wasn't internally validating myself. Today, of course, I'm in a different place.
Right.
I did realize, and alhamdulillah, I never got sick after that. I did
Yeah.
realize when I was at the hospital, I was like, okay, I need to take a step back and just relax. So now even when my team make mistakes, I'm like, it's not the end of the world, it's okay. It's not like we're saving lives, we're not heart surgeons and all that sort of thing, right? I'm not going to kill someone if I make a mistake, so it's okay.
Yeah. Did you ever go through that phase where you actually blamed the work or blamed someone else for all the stuff that happened and kind of slowed you down?
I've never been the type who does the blaming game. I don't feel like I blame myself, maybe.
Yeah,
but I don't blame
that's exactly what
others.
I'm trying to ask. Do you blame
Yeah.
yourself that time? That
I mean,
you know,
sometimes I'm
should've-
like, yeah, I should have had firmer boundaries, or
Yeah.
I should have done things differently. I should have
Yeah.
taken a step back. I should have asked for help. We don't ask for help.
Yes.
Yeah,
need to
that's
ask.
another
Yes.
habit that holds us
Yes.
back. Like, I
Yes.
should have asked for help. I should have enlisted for my allies right from the beginning. Not when things
Yeah.
are falling apart. It's like, oh, help me now, come save me. No, I should
Yeah.
have asked for help right from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's okay to
Yeah.
say I don't know.
You know,
Yeah.
following up on something Garima had asked earlier, you said about women supporting women.
Yeah.
Do you think now men also support women? There are a lot of men who are, because when you said you started out your first job, or
Yeah.
when you got back over here, it was a man who said, will you be my right hand?
Yeah.
Right? What do you think about men supporting women?
There's definitely a major shift. A major shift. And I think
Yes.
one simple example is my program, Sidrah. It's a
Right.
social initiative, an independent initiative. Actually, all my sponsors, with the exception of one, were males. And
Whoa.
I did not do any selling. I literally said, hey, there's a program I want to
Yeah.
launch.
Yeah.
Would you support us? And they
Yeah.
said, totally.
Wow.
So there is a definitely, and they are not, it's not just talk and lip service and just paying up some money, but they actually do believe in
that this program is going to make a
yeah.
difference, and they
Yeah.
believe in the program and the thought.
Well, I mean, they also have set policies in their own organizations to support
Wow.
women. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. So one of them said 75% of my new recruits have to be females. I was shocked. I was like, wow.
Wow.
He's like, yes, based on, merit and all that.
Yeah.
But 75% we need to fill at least. So let's say we need 100 employees. I'm going to make sure that we have to make
75%.
every effort to have 75%.
That's progressive.
So this is
Yeah.
happening, and he put it as a policy. So I was like,
Nice.
I like this person. And the next thing I
Nice.
knew, he sponsored my program.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
I mean, I'm also selective about who I want to reach out to. I know who
Yeah.
support and who don't, especially being in the business consulting field, providing services. Most of my buyers are males.
Yeah.
95% are males.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thanks to them.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, if there is a woman at a certain position, there are certain set of males or there are certain set of people who would say that why should I take a request from her, or who is she
Why do I
to ask
follow
me?
her?
Yeah, why do we follow her, or why is she instructing me, or because probably
Then it's not a request. Then it becomes she's dictating.
yeah, and why should I do this, and why is it not written in this way and not that way?
I mean, I know it's happened multiple times. It's happened with me, of course, and it's happened with
Oh, it
other
has?
women. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there's an art in communicating.
Yeah.
So I think it's also the energy you give out. So
Yeah.
if you're communicating with someone who's already like intimidated by your position or by whatever,
Yeah.
there is an art
Yeah.
in communicating to first, ground them
Yeah.
before telling them what to do. And I mean, you can get people to do a lot of things for you if you communicate it the right way. So for me,
Yeah.
there is an art to communicating.
Yeah.
Yes, there is ego, and I think we all have ego.
Yeah.
And a good sized ego is good for us to, to propel us forward.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's big, then you lose balance, right? It's like Humpty Dumpty. I
Yeah,
always say
that's
that.
true.
If your ego is really
but when
big,
we
you're
talk
like
about
Humpty
art of communicating, it is very easily taken if a man is actually giving you those instructions or sending out that email or asking you to do anything, because it's just programmed in your head like, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
But when a female comes into the picture and she says that this is how it's going to be done, there are too many questions asked.
Yes, unfortunately.
Then she's
Unfortunately.
aggressive and a lot of other synonyms like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then there are terms given to it. Like
She's
just how we
demanding.
were discussing
Yeah.
off the recording,
Yeah.
and when you said that the term ambition itself.
Yes.
Yeah, it's when you say that the girl is ambitious, somewhere you feel that it's negative.
Yeah.
But when a man is ambitious, ooh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
What do you feel about that?
It's 100% true. I mean, I remember I was having, I wouldn't say an identity issue, but when people went around saying, oh, she's ambitious, I said, what do they mean by ambitious? I mean, for me, if I'm going to spend 8 hours working, I don't want to be in the same position with the same pay for the next 10, 15 years, right? That's what you do. You want to be more productive. You want better rewards. That's, I think, a normal expectation from any human being who's putting the work in. And yes, with time, with experience, with expertise, you expect your value to go up. As a human being, as a human capital, the more you develop yourself, the more you should be appreciated, regardless. So I said, I want to be appreciated. I don't know if ambitious is the right word, because I felt like ambitious kind of, there's a negative connotation that everything comes second, and it's all about you. Actually, it's not all about me. I mean, I have helped so many people in the workplace. I've helped so
You're
many
doing it
people
for
in
a
the
cause,
business
there's a
community.
purpose.
Yes, it is something. The reward is to see the collective win. It's
Right.
not an individual.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But when a man is ambitious, he's the right guy for the job. When a woman's ambitious, okay, watch out, she's good, but watch out.
Yes,
You know?
yes. I can so feel it when she's saying that. Yeah,
unfortunately.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
You spearheaded a lot of programs. How do you foster inclusivity, since that is also a theme for this year's International Women's Day? So let's talk about that.
For me, inclusivity is essential. It's not even something that should be discussed or improperly marketed. When I talk about, say, for example, the Youth Leadership Program, inclusivity, we make sure that we pick women across the country, not just women from Muscat. We know the challenges of women in different other parts of the governorate, but there's not enough access to different types of jobs. Obviously, the high-end paying jobs are in Muscat, and there's not everything for everyone. And of course, others, they want to stay in their own governorate, right? They're not planning to move to Muscat just for the job, due to family. Some just love being at home, right? But so what's the next thing we do is that we help them or shape mindsets that actually can generate their own revenue, generate their own income, or diversify their income so they can be a teacher and they can have a side business, home business, and so on. So our inclusivity was to make sure that we handpick women from across the country, at least from the Sidrah program perspective, and we are covering all women. So we're covering job seekers, we're covering college students, we're covering young professionals, and also small and medium businesses.
Nice.
Yeah, because every year, so I started with 18 to 25, and then I did the 20 to 30, and then they said, what about us in our mid-30s? I said, okay, so let's expand it. So now it's like 20. So I think that's kind of the inclusion that we're trying to create.
Right.
When it comes to the workplace, of course, inclusivity means many things to me. It's also, it's gender, it's age, it's nationalities as well. Because for me, I always say that, yes, we're a global company with a local context, good context understanding of the local customs and all. So, and also we're very open to, we know that there's certain people who have like illnesses. I've hired 2 people who actually said that they have an illness that would impact them at the workplace, but that did not stop us, right? Because, and actually they're great performers. Regardless. But I was like, okay, if you disclose that elsewhere, you might not get the job. Same thing with women. We've had pregnant women, and some of them even took a year out. It's not necessarily a policy, but I allowed it to happen because I said, and actually they unbelievably, they perform really well after they've had the baby. It's just a mother's mindset is shaped. They know how to multitask, they know how to prioritize, they know how to manage time. So it's interesting when you keep an open mind, is that what value do each one of these individuals bring to the table.
I don't know if we can.
So
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm saying that the entire program that we're talking about, the Sidrah program, is it right to say that the program actually aims to make women financially independent?
That is one aspect of it. So one was job readiness. One was also readiness for future of work skills, preparing them how to ace in their interviews.
Very nice.
Preparing them how to become good managers and leaders, how to work as a team. So it's not about leading, that being the boss, but really leading even in day one of your job. How do you lead? How do you collaborate? How do you network? We are creating a community. That's what we're trying to do. So when you say women supporting women, it's unbelievable how much they're supporting one another. So just one of our, we've trained 60 women this year. One of them, so one of them just hired another one in her batch.
Wow.
So that's, for me, that's like a highlight.
That's the reward
That
for
is,
you.
that was like, wow. She actually, and it's nobody mentioned it to me or anything, but they spent 11 days together, and now she has a job.
Lovely, lovely. Wow, it feels nice when you hear stuff like that. But tell me something, in today's world, how important is it for women to be financially independent? Because just over the weekend, we were just having a little chat with all our friends, and there comes a kid. She's just 5, okay? She's just 5, and the question asked to her was, so what do you want to be once you grow up? And you're going to work hard, and you can do whatever you want. She was like, why am I going to work? And suddenly the next question was, you don't want to work when you grow up? No, I'm going to chill at home. I'm going to make sure that my husband makes enough and more money so that I can chill. It's
And
a
she's
5-year-old.
Wow.
Okay. So my question here is that I do understand that a lot comes into picture when it's about the upbringing at home and what kind of values are you giving to children and how, in what kind of an environment are they really growing up, right? If I had to ask you, what are the little things that can be shared with them or that can be included or that should be kept in mind while the children are of that age, while they're growing up? Because honestly, there are a lot of women out there who are even working right now, but the backup plan is that one day I'll just marry a rich guy and I'm sorted for life. They don't understand that everything comes with a price. They are paying a big price for that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is that thing that they actually need to keep in mind when it comes to the fact that what difference will it make in their life when it's about being financially independent?
I think before even discussing being financially independent, we need to talk about how do we live with meaning and purpose. That's often missed. I know a lot of women, I have friends who are married and they don't work, and I have friends who are married who work, and I've got single friends who work, and I have single friends who, are taken care of by the family. And I've seen one key difference is the ones who are not working actually don't feel like they have a purpose to even wake up. Some of them even talk about that. They just say, I don't feel I have a purpose when I wake up in the morning. I don't know, So maybe I take the kids to the school, and then what? I sit at home and do what? Okay, cook,
Yeah.
do something, whatever.
Yeah.
Some of them don't have to do anything because they're sorted, right? They have all the help that they need.
Right.
But they're not happy internally because they want to do more. And actually, some of them even call me up and say, is there anything I can do? Can I help with Sidrah? Some of them even ask, they're like, I'll do anything, even if you just want me to carry the equipment, the cameras or whatever. I was like, what? So I can see that there is that. Now, when it comes to financial independence, I was raised with parents who split the bills.
Right.
And this was not apparently something rare. We just don't talk about it.
Yes.
But I think my parents are okay if I talk about it, because today people need 2 salaries.
Yes.
Homes need 2 salaries.
Yes.
The life, the lifestyle and the expectations of the younger generation, and the expenses of education, everything has changed.
Yes.
So 2 salaries is a must. And I think the other thing is, and my mom always says that, why do we always look at it as she needs to be financially independent? What if something happened to her husband? What if she's a widow? What if he becomes disabled? What if he's in a job that doesn't really have a great career trajectory, right? So somebody's working in the banking sector, someone's working as an engineer with a specific expertise. He doesn't really have a leadership track. She suddenly becomes a CEO of a bank. She is a breadwinner. It's about, so, the dynamics are very different. And this, even with some of my friends, they surprised me. They said, yeah, mom used to pay half the bills. I said, oh, I thought it was just my mom. And actually, this has been happening for decades.
Yeah.
We need to admit it. It's been
Yes.
happening for decades.
Yes.
I think that's one thing that we, undermine is what have women brought to the table.
Absolutely.
or
I don't
brought
think
to
so.
the
There are
home.
enough and more women who are talking about it openly,
Yeah.
who are addressing the thing that it's pretty normal to do that.
Exactly.
And because there are not enough and more discussions around that, the mindset still continues to exist where man continues to be the breadwinner
guy
and,
always
and
pays the
guy,
bill.
yeah.
And I think it's
always-
unfair on men, right? This is
Yeah,
social
I'm
pressure.
sure it's
This
not
is
something
social
against
pressure.
them, but I'm just saying that there are not enough and more discussions happening around that.
No, I agree with you. But what I meant by social pressure is that he's the breadwinner. He's the breadwinner.
there's
he's
too
not
much-
That's the
necessarily
pressure.
going to be
Yeah,
one, right?
yeah.
There's too
Give him
much
a break.
pressure.
Yeah.
He
just has
might
to
not
chill a
be.
bit too.
Yeah.
We don't know where his career path is going to take him, and where her
Right.
career path is going to take her. Sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's destiny, sometimes it's hard work, and sometimes it's circumstances,
Yes.
right? So there's different reasons for that. But I think what also needs to be made clear is that although women split bills, they don't have to in Islam. In Islam, a woman's earnings is hers, and a man's earnings is for himself and the family. He has to
Whoa.
be bearing all the cost for everything. However, that's not necessarily what is practiced, and there's nothing wrong helping your husband.
Right.
But like I said, the social pressures just positions each gender a little bit.
Yeah.
Each one has their own pressures. But you can see I remember one man. He's a businessman, and he said, Shatha, if you do any business for women, you'll be in business even during COVID, because apparently COVID, all the women-run businesses, actually 80% of the businesses that were set up during COVID were by women.
Whoa.
So talking about,
There you go.
Wow,
generating their
look
own
at the numbers
income.
there.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
home businesses, but
Yeah.
still they were 80%. What do you think they were doing? They were helping the husbands. That's what they were doing, right? It's like, okay, situation is tough. A lot of people got laid off. A lot of people got pay cuts.
Yes.
A lot of people were forced to go and leave.
Yes.
And it's like, again, uncertainty. The women just, said, you know what, let's find another way to generate new streams of income.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
Obviously, they do it for their family. A woman, she gives back to everyone. She doesn't just give back to her kids and the home. She gives back to the parents. She gives back to her siblings. I know this for a fact. I know tons of stories where women take care of the entire family.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why aren't we
Naturally-
talking about it?
Yeah. We're nurturing, right? As women, we're nurturing.
Absolutely.
And that's what we do. Everything we have, we share.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's always
Yeah.
a plus
I
point.
think we're inherently hardwired to be a little bit more giving.
Right. Okay, so like you said, that it's all about how we technically at home also what are the values that are instilled in the environment also makes a lot of difference. So if I had to ask you, how can we really normalize it? Why is it such a big issue till date? Why is it that they still question that if the female is also working, then who's taking care of the house? Why is that a big question till date?
Good question. I don't know how to answer it in a direct way. Again, to be honest, it's very circumstantial, right? So there are situations where women just don't have time, right?
Yeah.
There are situations where women do everything, but she doesn't talk about it. Yeah, I mean, I gave you the example of my mom. She was working in the government. She's back home at 2:30. We get back at 3 p.m. She's available until like 7:30 when she tells us go to bed. After 7:30, she looks after her business for like an hour, and that's it. She continues, and she did a lot of other things. She sat on boards. She was working. You know, she's always been also actively as a social worker. You know, so but I never felt her presence was absent. You know, so
Do you
I think
also
it's-
believe that it takes a lot from the man's side as well in the whole relationship, that to have that supportive husband or to have that supportive man in the family makes a lot of difference?
100%. My dad was 100% supportive. Not just supportive, he was proud. He was proud. I
Yes.
remember him saying one thing. He said, I can take her into any room. I don't even have to talk. Yeah. So I think that says a lot, right? I mean, other men
Absolutely.
might say, oh, you know, it's so
Absolutely.
belittling. She's the smart one or whatever. But
Yeah.
no, he's like, I don't even need to talk. I just
Yeah.
walk in with her.
Yeah.
And, you know, so
And she picks it up
there's,
there.
I mean, there was no ego.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There was no ego. There was pride. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's important is a supportive husband can go a very long way.
Oh,
Supportive
definitely,
brothers, supportive fathers. My dad
Yes.
is very supportive. So even when I
Yes.
went overseas, a lot of people might have thought like, what is he thinking? How can he allow her to go? And he's like, what do you mean? How do I allow her? She's an adult. She can make her own decisions. And I trust her.
Say that again, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally,
Please.
she can make her own decisions.
Wow.
And I trust her. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's always been like that. Never, never, ever dictated my decision since I turned 18, because he was on his own since the age of 18, had to be responsible and all. And so he's like, I expect that from my children.
Do you think there's ever an ego clash between two partners when both of them are working?
Not necessarily. I mean, I know a lot where their husbands and wives work. Sometimes, obviously, completely different paths, so they don't really see eye to eye.
Right.
Others where they love conversing because they're actually mentally stimulating one another, right? It's like, hey, what happened at work? And they keep exchanging notes, and actually they support one another,
Yes.
even in their growth.
Yes.
If ego comes in the way, then they're not going to last.
Yeah.
100%, they're not going to last.
You know, following on what you said, and again, this still happens. You know, if the lady earns more than the guy, they don't go out and share it with people because
Yes, of course.
Yeah, because of certain unsaid things there. Yeah.
but it doesn't like it shouldn't be that way.
Well, yes. What do you have to say on that?
It's a social pressure, right? If you're
Yeah.
already positioned the male gender to be the breadwinner, and this is a global thing, it's a universal
Yeah, it's not just it's
Yeah.
everywhere.
I mean, in
Yeah.
the US, my boss at that time, she said that my husband is the stay-home dad, and I'm going to be the one working, just before she delivered. And I said, oh, how come? She said, because, you know, he's a carpenter, and I'm about to become a partner. So she's like, it only makes sense financially for
Yeah.
us and for the kid
But see,
that
that's
he
very
takes care of the
practical.
home.
It's very
It's extreme.
forward.
It's
Yeah.
extreme, but this happened 15 years ago.
Yeah.
This
We
was
should
15
get there
years
now
ago.
already.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Sidrah program more, okay? Now, you on a very regular basis are in touch with these young women, young girls. What are the things and what are the challenges that they are facing the most, and how do you deal with that? Especially when we're talking about the Oman market. Because these are all Omanis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, one of them is just helping them understand how things are different from the education, you know, from academia to the job market, workplace. I think one of the biggest challenges that they bicker about is the pay. Right? Why is the pay so low? Why is the starting salary so low? How are we going to manage with such pay? And so on. Of course, the other thing is not getting interviews. So it's like I submitted my CV at so many organizations, and you know
It's
I
not
didn't even
going
get an
through.
interview or whatever. And then when I see the CVs, I'm like, okay, let me tell you why. Right? So
That
then I
needs
walk
work.
them through that. So I help them with that.
Yeah.
Same thing with interviews. I mean, bless them. Sometimes they just need that support. So I had
Yeah.
one young lady come up to me. She's like, I'm really nervous. I have a job interview tomorrow. Can you prep me? Actually, every girl who reached out to me, she got the job. So
Wow.
yeah. So I just said
That's
you
some
need to
track
be.
record.
Yeah, I know, right?
It
Why
made
are we
me
going to
happy.
the other consultancy service? You just need to go to her, right?
I don't know if it's about consultancy.
See, we need to ask for help. So tomorrow, I'm going to call her.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean my tips were just be authentic.
Right.
And don't forget your smile. Let them read you through your smile, right? Because some of them, like there was one I told her, I was like, I can't read you unless you smile. You know, so when she was smiling, she's like, okay, I'm going to take my smile with me. And I also tell them, just be authentic. If you don't know the answer to the question, just say you don't know. And be
Yeah.
prepared to also ask questions, but also be prepared to research the
Right.
company, ask more about the job, show interest, because they're not looking at how smart you are or what you know about the job as much as
Yeah.
how curious you are,
Yeah.
right? And, you know, also
Yeah.
personality, right?
Yes.
Going in with a smile just makes a person feel like, hey, I can work with this person, you know,
Yeah.
we can work with this person.
Yeah.
So communication, professional demeanor, showing up on time, very basic things.
Right.
And I always
right.
tell them, please don't ask about the pay, because that's not a question you want to ask.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Anything in particular that you'd like to address or you want to talk about it openly because not enough people are talking about when it comes to women at work?
I would like more women to support women. Yeah, I always say that the sun is so big that we can all shine. We need to not forget that. I think sometimes people or women worry that, you know, I don't want to lose the spotlight. The spotlight is the sun, and the sun can shine on all of us. So I
Yeah.
think it's important to remember that we need to support one another. It's
Yeah.
very simple. I mean, and I can see that shift happening already, right? I already told you, and I think it needs to start early, not when you make it to the top. But we have young women at my workplace, as an example, who have recommended other women to work with us. And they know the standards, they know what we're looking for. So as long as you are supporting with the right objectives in an ethical manner, why not?
Yeah.
Do more of it.
Yeah.
Not see one another as a threat, but
As a
see as one
competition.
another, yeah, as competition.
Yeah.
You know, I think boys or men do that all the time. They have each other's back, even if he
Yeah,
doesn't have all the
absolutely.
credentials.
Yeah.
But I think we're also under pressure and we're judged. Is that was your assessment on point or not? When you suggested another woman, was she really good enough for the job or not? Or did you just recommend a friend? So women, when a woman recommends another woman, you can trust her, generally
Right.
speaking. She's not
Right.
just going to recommend anybody.
Yes.
You know, I know that for
yes.
a fact. So I've had women who recommended other women, and I was like, wow, thanks. Can you bring more
Lovely.
on board? Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think our authenticity also makes us hold back, thinking, oh, I don't want to be judged. What if things don't go as
Yeah.
planned? Then it's
Yeah.
going to be on me.
Yeah.
We're all under that pressure. I'm guilty of it too. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, yes, I do want to support, but for me, you know, first it's based on merit
Right.
and making sure that they make you proud.
Right.
Yeah, so when I recommended, for example, the Italian woman, today she's a partner at Paris. Whether you liked her or not, I'm like, guys, see where she is.
Wow.
She's up there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But many a times it also happens since you are in the consulting business as well, and also you are dealing with these young women on a daily basis, and also you've been on those positions as well. Do you think that thought ever crosses or affects people's decision making when they say that, okay, she's at this particular age, she doesn't have any children at the moment, maybe she's in the planning stage, and if this person gets recruited at the moment, there is a possibility that, you know, in the coming months we see like a longer leave, and then okay, you've got to be like, if the medical expenses are also taken, kind. Do you think that really affects the decision making, or
It
no,
does.
people?
It has. I know. Countless
Yeah?
stories. Countless
do?
stories where decisions like that were made. Sometimes even decisions that, oh, you're getting married, suddenly the decisions on the table kind of shifts a little bit.
We've seen that
I've heard countless stories.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like I had a woman who came up to me and said, shall I disclose that I'm 6 months pregnant? I was like, that's on you. Don't ask me for such advice. I'd love you to be honest, but is it a question? It's not something that you need to mention. It's
Yeah.
who else is going to get pregnant? The woman.
Yeah.
It's not like the man has an
Exactly,
option.
exactly.
So why is that, you know, that's
Yeah.
procreation is our duty, right?
That's true, but what I'm trying to ask here is that if we need to make a shift there, or if we need to make people to think about the fact that no, it's pretty normal, and if that woman is even planning a pregnancy or is even going to be back, the work is still going to run as normal. But then the next question comes, oh my god, she's going to be more involved in the upbringing of the children, because suddenly that mindset changes, because by default it is that the woman has to lead that at home.
I think they forget that men also have joint responsibility for their kids.
Absolutely, but not many men and women actually admit to that and accept it to be as normal.
Well, I mean, to be fair, also a lot is on the woman. right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I've had women like, who have to show up for the KG graduation or to take their kids or pick them up and send them to the hospital mostly.
Yeah.
It's the mothers who do it because the father's busy at work. But she's at work too, so I get it, right? The responsibilities. But unfortunately, yes, there is still bias when it comes to recruitment and promotions. It's like, hey, she's pregnant, she's not going to get promoted this year. I've heard countless stories like that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they see it as an extra cost. Unfortunately, that's exactly what they say. She's an extra cost. Well, what about the value that she brings to the table?
Yes.
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 I've had, I mean, we also make a joke at Protiviti that we're like a baby factory because every woman and even every man, they all had babies when they came to Protiviti, all of them. And it's not
That's
one
how
baby
happened.
or two, it's like
Yeah.
3, 4
Yeah.
fake, kids. And nothing changed at our workplace. Actually, the fathers had a harder time. During COVID, they used to say, can you give us permission to work from the office? Because we can't focus. Whereas the mothers, can I work from home? Because I can manage. We can hear the kid crying in the background and she's carrying on Teams and she's like, sorry, my kid, it's okay.
She's a multitasker. She can handle it all
Totally.
and she can balance it all.
Yeah, but
right?
all the fathers, they said, so we had to prioritize the office space just for the fathers. So it was the fathers.
That's the first that I'm hearing.
Yeah. I mean, I was laughing about it, but they actually asked me, can you please, because, we had to do the whole distancing and all. So I said, unfortunately, it would be the fathers. The working mothers were super happy. Actually, they performed their best working from home.
Yeah.
They performed their best,
Yeah. Wow. Oh my God. I can just go on and on and on and on and can keep asking her questions and can keep asking her to share. One question. Throughout the whole conversation, you mentioned quite a few times about your mom. I'm assuming here that she was your role model and you've learned a lot from her. Who was your mom's role model?
See, my mom grew up alone. She went to boarding school from the age of 11.
Wow.
So she grew up learning how to take care of herself.
Right.
She didn't really have a role model per se. Obviously, she has a mom, she had aunts and everything.
Yeah.
But she said it wasn't easy in boarding school in Egypt back in her days.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's self-made, to be honest. I can't necessarily credit anyone, although she does credit her dad and her mom, especially her dad, because he always said education is your weapon in life. And he was a very big advocate for education, especially for his girls. He had 4 girls and a boy.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was very big on that.
Right.
So she's self-made.
Wow.
She's self-made, yeah. So all her stories explains the personality that she grew into, or being, in her 20s, sitting on the board, being an advisor, setting up the infrastructure for the telecom and all. That's not, an easy ask from a young person with kids.
Yes.
Because she had at least 2 of us before my youngest brother was born. So she's self-made. I mean, I had the plus point where I just get to learn all her stories and say, okay,
Yeah,
and I've learned one thing.
I can do this.
Yeah. And I think one thing I've learned about her is that you need to be your authentic self. And she always said, I really don't care if people like me or not, as long as they respect my decisions. And she was always respected. Maybe not everyone's fan, although I think they all love her today, because reflecting back on the wise and sound decisions she made, that maybe is not everyone's cup of tea, but she was very direct.
Yeah.
But, but she was charming.
Wow,
so the art of
that's a rare
communication.
combo.
Yeah, that's why I was saying earlier, the art of communication. It's how you communicate. So she doesn't necessarily have to snap and scream and cry about things, but she was just like, I don't agree, and that's my final word,
Wow.
But she was also well respected because they said that there was a part of her that was very nurturing, so that she was intimidating but also nurturing.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's quite a balance there.
Yeah.
Quite a
Right.
combination.
Yeah.
So it was
And
quite
you
a tough
also,
path.
while throughout the conversation was going on, you're extremely positive. Like there wasn't a single question or there wasn't a single time where you mentioned or you complained about something or anything. What is that you're doing differently that the others are not? Where do you bring all that positivity in you, and where do you get all that energy and the motivation from every day?
See, that didn't just happen. We've all gone through our ups and downs.
Right.
And I think with experience, you realize what the energy you give out is what you attract. The thoughts you have is also what you attract. Your
I
beliefs
totally agree.
is what, So for me, I have shaped a positive mindset because I've seen how it works to my benefit. Of course, there are days when you're like, oh, this is not going to work out. And yeah, it doesn't work out. Or you say, I'm okay with whatever happens. And then you're like, oh, it worked out.
Yeah.
So I believe to be in the flow, and things will work out as long as you put the work as well.
or I'm going to go back to that art of communication bit.
Yes.
You know, you have to be diplomatic, but you have to be firm. You have to be kind, but you also need to communicate your point. You need to strike a
100%.
balance, right?
Yeah.
So if you just had to tell someone that, hey, you're not doing your job right, how do you say it nicely while not, demotivating them?
See, I study people. My communication changes from one person to another. Yeah, so there are certain people that you just need to be straight up with. There are others that you need to kind of like massage their ego
Sugarcoat
as you,
things.
as you get to the points. Some of them use the old-fashioned, the sandwich feedback, where you say something positive and then you say the negative and whatever.
Then
Others,
there's
you're
the
just
but
like
after the positive.
There are others. I'm just very direct, so I just
As it is.
as it is, but without hurting feelings. But you just say things. When people understand, I've had situations where people come in and just get upset about something. And my first question is it for your benefit or not? And then they just get,
Yeah.
I'm like, is it for your good or not? I've had so many situations like, I don't accept this feedback. I'm like, please just explain to me one thing. Is this useful or not? Someone says that you need to develop in this area. Same thing with clients. I've had situations when the negotiations were just unreasonable. And I say it's unreasonable.
Just as it is.
Yeah, as it is.
Or
I said, this is unethical pricing. I said, what? It says unethical if I underquote.
Yeah.
And it's unethical if I overquote.
Right.
So if you're saying that I overquoted, it means I'm unethical. And if you're telling me to underquote, then you're unethical. And it's like, but I've won projects because of those conversations. Because it's like, wait a minute, let's trust her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think for me, my strength, and I think everyone's strength, is being authentic.
Yeah.
We want to work with people we trust. We want to talk
Right.
to people we trust.
Right. Right. Has there ever been a deal that always will stay with you, that you cracked that deal and you cracked it this way?
That's the one I just mentioned to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I walked in and they said, look, if you want the job, you need to give us a 50% discount. And so I just picked up my bag. It's all psychology, right? So I just picked up my bag. I said, okay, so, thanks for inviting me, but you could have said that by email or
Right.
by phone. And
Right.
But I
Why?
said it very calmly. I wasn't upset, and my team were freaking out next to me. They're like, what do you mean you're ending this conversation?
Yeah.
And then I said, I just have one point to say,
Yeah.
is that if I overquoted you, you shouldn't work with me, because that's unethical. And if you're asking me to underquote, that's unethical of you. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to give you my best people
Yeah.
for, cutting my cloth that way.
How did they
Yeah.
react to that? I just want to know their reaction.
They said, oh, no. Well, a couple of guys were in the room. They're like, no, that's not what we're saying. I said, I'm just telling you the way it is.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, think about it. We said, okay. We went back to the office, and I told my team, just tell them no discount. And I said, we might lose the job. I said, I already said no discount, because I want to be remembered for my ethics and not be remembered for winning a deal. And a week later, it was awarded to us without any negotiation. And that's when my team's mindset changed. They said, okay. I said, let's just price things properly so we're okay. It's a win-win whether we win it or lose it. And that's my mindset. Anything we lose, I'm like, it wasn't meant for us.
Yeah.
And when we win it, I'm like, it was waiting for us. And it helps.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Before we close, now everyone listening to you at the moment, what is that you'd like to tell them? All these young women, or even the CEOs, or the ones who are about to start, or the ones who are already there 15 years, all the women out there, or even the men listening. What's that one message that you'd like to give to them?
Just be authentic.
Be
Gurinder said it
authentic.
best. Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely. Shatha, it has been so nice speaking with you.
Same
All
here.
the very best for all your programs.
Thank you.
We have a few calls that we have to make after this episode, I think. We've learned a lot.
Absolutely. Yes.
But thank you so much for joining
Oh,
us.
thank you.
Thank you
It's
so
been a
much
nice
for your
chat.
time.
Thank you.
It was a very inspirational one. There were so many times when I got those goosebumps and I was like, talk more. To know more about her, to know more about the programs that she's involved in, and to support her, all you got to do is just give her a follow on her LinkedIn profile, which is Shatha Al Maskiry. Well, happy International Women's Day.
Thank you.
Let's
Same
go
to you,
out and
ladies.
support more
Onward
women
and
there.
upward.
Yes. Thank you for listening and watching us.
This is Unscripted with Antara and Garima.
Take care of yourself.